Welcome to episode 29 of Bonding and Beer. My name is Rolando Nunez. I'm your host, and today's topic is calcium releasing materials. Let's go. What has Rolando been up to? Well, again, I haven't traveled much lately, which is a good thing. But I do have a side hustle, which some of you probably already know. And it's the fact that I have a food truck. I've done a few festivals. This past weekend, I did another one in Woodstock. So Woodstock, Illinois. It's really, really far away from my house. But we took the food trailer over there, and we had a great time. However, I'm going to tell you a story about this specific event. We get there, and my responsibility is to load up the food trailer. My wife's responsibility, who's my partner in this venture, is to load up all the ingredients for the burgers. What does that mean? She needs to load up the bread. She needs to load up the beef. She needs to load up the sauce, the pickles, and the onions. Those are the 5 ingredients. We get there, I fire up the griddle, ready to go. I ask, where are the onions? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, you're responsible for the ingredients. What are you talking about? Oh, I didn't know. What do you mean you didn't know? It's in the menu. It says onion smash burgers. Oh, my God. So, you know what? I took a deep breath, and we just served cheeseburgers, no onion burgers. And our signature burgers is the Oklahoma onion smash burger. But we can do that because apparently I have to be in charge of the ingredients too. Today, we're going to be covering calcium releasing products, or calcium release, the importance of calcium release. So we're going to talk about how calcium interacts with the tooth structure, right? How it is released into the system. We're going to talk about different delivery methods of calcium into the system, into the dentin specifically. And also, we're going to discuss a little bit about how to find the perfect calcium-releasing product for the application that you want to use it at, okay? Hopefully, by the end of this episode, you will have enough tools to find the right product for you. But before we get any deeper, let's open this beer. Let's see what Jeremy, the producer, brought today for us to enjoy. Let's go. Okay, so our beer today is called Domaine DuPage or DuPage. And Jeremy just pointed out that in the can, it says no wrong way to say it. So it could be DuPage or DuPage. This is from Two Brothers, Artisan Brewing. They are in Warrenville, Illinois. So this is a very local beer. I've had other beers from Two Brothers in the past. I've never had this one. This one is described as a French-style country ale. So kind of like a farmhouse type of beer. The can is blue, and it has an owl, it's kind of cartoonish, but it's an interesting design. The owl, and there is what seems to be either a sun at the sunset or just an orange circle in the back of the owl. So this has 6.2% of alcohol content. And here's the description directly from the brewery's website. It says, inspired by the brothers' time living in France, this food-friendly ale is deep amber in color with a toasty and sweet caramel start. It finishes with just enough hops to clean off the palate. So if it has a sweet caramel toasty, at the beginning, so it might be a little sweet, and it ends up a little bit bitter. This is what I'm assuming based on the description. Let's see. Oh yeah. It has an interesting smell, okay? I'm going to pour it. Hopefully, I'm not going to botch it. And here we go. I'm pouring it like a professional. Yes. This pour, I give it a 10. Very, very good, Rolando. Very, very good pour. So, I'm looking at it right now. It is amber in color. Is very amber. Okay? It's dark. It's got a good head, and I'm going to sniff it. It has like a malty scent to it. It smells like a beer, okay? Kind of yeasty. But it also has like a sweet smell. It's really interesting. I was talking to Jeremy about why are we doing this, and he said, let's just have some fun. Let's just move away from the IPAs. And I think he's right. We got to give everything an opportunity. So I am going to take a sip.
Sip, sip, sip.
Hey, man, listen. Yo, Jeremy, I got to tell you, man, this is very good. I'm going to give it a score at the end. It is kind of sweet at the beginning. Not that much of a punch at the end, but you can feel the hoppiness to it. The description is to the T. And I was not sure if I wanted to. I did not know what kind of reaction I was going to have to this whole French style country ale. But I got to tell you, if this is what they're drinking in France, let's go, man. Let's go over there. This is good stuff.
Sip, sip.
It's not only about wine. Hey, French guys, they make good beer. Or the style is awesome. Awesome. Let's go. Okay, so our topic is calcium release, calcium releasing products. So why is calcium something of interest in dentistry? You know, we've been using calcium containing and calcium releasing products for a long time. There has been so many products out there that release calcium, and they have interesting interactions with the tooth structure. But basically, the release of calcium generates an alkaline pH. I don't know if this is still done. I remember that when you had a hot tooth, a root canal, a hot canal, you know, it was not smelling very good. It was kind of funky. And then you will make a solution with calcium hydroxide and saline solution. And then you will just put it in there, close it, wait 24 hours. And then that root canal came back super clean. So the alkaline pH has an interesting effect on the environment of the restoration. Also, calcium it induces hydroxyapatite precipitation and possible remineralization. You have products like Dical, okay? And even though today Dical is not as popular, it's still popular. There are other options that are definitely better, but a lot of dentists were trained in dental school on how to use Dical, how to use specifically Dical as a product, okay? And we used it, and it's still used as a pulp capping agent, direct pulp capping agent, and it has some success. You know, there are clinical studies, a lot of literature out there that shows that, you know, when used accordingly and good case selection is going to work. So, you know, Dical and calcium actually generate a dentin bridge to protect that exposure. So calcium is actually something interesting to have interacting with the dentin. Now, how is the calcium released? Usually, the material is the delivery system. The material will have calcium in its formula. And there's got to be a way, right, depending on the formula, that the calcium is released. For example, for something to be released, there's got to be some sort of exchange, okay? So something has to come in and something has to come out of the material. To have effective calcium release, the ion exchange has to be effective. And I'm going to give you an example. Glass ionomers release fluoride, and the way they release fluoride is by ion exchange. The glass ionomer material absorbs water, water reacts, and fluoride is released, right? It reacts with the fluoride source. Same thing with calcium. There are different types of calcium sources. You have calcium silicate, you have calcium hydroxide, you have different calcium sources that are included in the material's formula. So you need for water to come in, react, and have calcium released into the interface between the material and the tooth structure. And that's where the magic should happen, right there at that interface. Okay, so different delivery systems have different interactions, have different amounts of calcium released into the interface. Okay, so you have products that contain resin. For example, I'll give you an example: Ultra Blend Plus from Ultradent, Theracal LC from Bisco, Calcimol from Voco. There is another one from PulpDent, Limelight. All these products, they have calcium in the system, and they're resin-containing products. Do they all release calcium? To some extent, but some's way more than others. Because also, we need to think about, is calcium release a good thing? Yes. But is it really therapeutic, the amount of calcium that is being released? Or is it just kind of like a gimmicky thing? So this is, and we will discuss this later on in this episode, but different delivery systems will ensure that calcium is being released, okay? And the way the ion exchange happens, it's also related to the delivery system, which is basically the formula, okay? Now, you, as a clinician, you need to know what type of calcium release you need. You need to know, based on the procedure that you're going to conduct, what kind of material is best suited for that procedure, because not all products are going to behave the same in different clinical scenarios. And that calcium may not be enough to actually have the therapeutic effect that the clinician is looking for. So all these things have to be considered, okay? And it is extremely important to know the nature of the material, the application, but most important, the possible effect, the indication that the material has in order to use that material accordingly. From a marketing perspective, and this is where it gets interesting, I feel that sometimes companies understand the thought process of dentists can be not swayed, but you can use things that are ingrained in the DNA of any dentist to the advantage of a company based on a little bit of marketing. And I'm going to give you an example. We were taught that fluoride is a good thing. So if something contains fluoride, it must be good. Now, nobody cares much about finding out the amount of fluoride that is being released, if that fluoride is actually going to have a therapeutic effect. No one cares much about that. They care is about the fact that it contains fluoride. Right there, it triggers a sense of standard of care. Oh, I'm using a composite, and the composite contains fluoride. It must be better than the non-fluoride containing.
Sip, sip, sip.
So is that fluoride a gimmick, or is that fluoride actually effective? That's the question. With calcium, it's kind of like the same thought process. Oh, you're going to go deep into a preparation. I'm going to use something that is calcium containing because it's a good thing to put something that contains calcium close to the pulp. And in some cases, on top of the pulp, on top of a small exposure, to maybe give that tooth a chance and not necessarily send it to endo. All right? So, if it has calcium, it must be good. Well, maybe, but we don't know. We don't know if all materials will behave the same. Just because it has calcium doesn't mean that it's going to do what you think it's going to do, right? So the marketing is very important. And a lot of companies do their marketing, and sometimes the way they promote their products are a little iffy. And look, I work in the industry, so I am exposed to the marketing from other companies every day because I have to. I look into what other companies are saying. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes their claims are solid, they're valid, they're legit. And sometimes they're a little, I don't want to use any derogatory term, but sometimes we end up doing the testing in-house to actually see if it's true what their claims are. And we get interesting results, not necessarily the same results that they are claiming, okay? And we do this every day because we want to see the type of innovation that other companies have, that some product may bring to the table. And sometimes we see that it's not as good as it's being advertised, And that's just the world of marketing. You want to take your newest product that you think is your best product, hype it up, and then it turns out it's not that good, or it turns out that it's even better than you thought. It all depends, right? But the marketing of certain products, especially the calcium releasing products, it always draws attention from clinicians, especially if they believe that the calcium in a deep prep is a good thing. And I'm going to speak about something that contains calcium that came into the market and revolutionized the market. It's called MTA, mineral trioxide aggregate. And that contains calcium silicate. MTA was developed for the endodontic world to basically to close perforations in root canals. And it works. And then people started thinking about, well, let's try to develop something that is MTA-like for restorative dentistry, moving away a little bit from calcium hydroxide and started, working with calcium silicates, right? So now we have a level of innovation that has triggered a new generation of materials, different materials. For anything that had to do with pulp capping and lining, it was calcium hydroxide all the way until MTA came out. And MTA is a game changer. And now you have all sorts of companies and materials out there that use calcium silicate as a calcium source, right?
Sip, sip, sip.
There are many different layers that will affect what you're going to use and why, right? The last layer, and it should be at the bottom, the last thing that is going to drive your purchase, let's say habit, should be pricing. But unfortunately, we live in a price-driven society. And dentistry is not any different, right? And some clinicians, they say, I'm going to buy the best that I can afford. And some clinicians are looking to try to save a dime here, a penny over there, a quarter over there. And they will definitely pay attention to promotions and pricing, and they won't care much about other things. And everyone runs their office the way they feel is the way to do it. And I'm not going to criticize that. But if I had to do a pyramid of priorities on what the things that have an effect on the decision making when it comes to the purchase and use of a product on my patients, price should be at the bottom. It shouldn't be anywhere but at the bottom. If you feel a product is right, if you feel that you trust this product, and that product is a little bit more pricey than the competition, that shouldn't make a difference. Your decision should not be made solely on price. How do you choose? Why do you choose what you're using right now? How do you choose it? Well, there's so many different ways, okay? I feel that, you might get information from a company through an email, or somebody mails you a newsletter, or you buy something and some marketing material is included in your shipping. And, you get to see some information about this product, or you go to a trade show, you stop by a company's booth and they give you a little, 5-minute rundown on stuff, and then they give you a brochure for you to take home and read. that's a way of understanding stuff. However, that is very marketing driven, which has a purpose, okay? Is putting the product in front of you, giving you all the information about that product so you can digest it as quick as possible. However, there are other ways to learn about products. Definitely attending lectures. Attending lectures and listening to the key opinion leaders on specific areas, right? Whether they're local key opinion leaders or nationwide key opinion leaders or international key opinion leaders. You got all those guys that are putting together presentations. They're putting an effort into sharing what they do and why. So that's an interesting way to learn because you're going to get to see a different point of view about something that maybe you never thought about, right? And the type of materials and how that person uses that materials to solve an issue. So lectures are important. There is another way to learn about a product that not many people use, and it's available to you now. It's by reading the instructions for use. You can read any instruction for use of any product where the company has a website. You can find it. And in that instruction for use, it will tell you to the detail, the applications, the indications, and how to use it. It will tell you that. The IFU is the ultimate document on a company website, and the SDS. Those two are extremely important. And you can learn about a product just by reading the IFU. It's crazy how much you can learn. Now,
Sip, sip, sip.
what are you going to use and why and how and when, right? It's going to depend on the clinical application. I will say this. If you're going to do a direct pulp capping, you need something that is alkaline from the beginning. If something is acidic, like something that is self-adhesive or something that requires a bonding agent, your calcium release is going to be hindered if you're on top of the pulp. The acidic pH is going to create irritation on the pulp, and the fact that you have to use an adhesive is going to just seal the dentin, and the calcium that is released is not going to have any effect. So it's got to be alkaline from the beginning to be really effective on top, directly on top of the pulp. If you are going to use it as a liner in a deep prep, okay, that material should, also be alkaline, or at least become alkaline after the placement, okay? You're not necessarily on top of exposed pulp, but you're close. And you want your material, if it's self-adhesive, that if you place it and needs to be acidic in order to bond, you also need for it to transition to alkaline in order to have a much better clinical effect, okay? So depending on the clinical scenario, you have to think about these things, okay? If you're on top of the pulp, product needs to be alkaline out of the syringe, after the mixture. It cannot be acidic. If it requires a bonding agent, you cannot use it on top of the pulp, unfortunately. So those things are important, and that will definitely help you decide which product is better for what different clinical application, right? So in order to wrap it up, calcium-releasing materials are super interesting when they are effective in deep preps and in small pulp exposures, right? There are many different products, but they don't behave the same because their formulas are different. There is this belief that, if it has resin, it's going to be toxic. Well, yes, to the pulp. That is true as long as the product is not properly polymerized. If it's properly polymerized, the product is not going to be toxic, even if it contains resin. So you need to understand that a lot of the, the so-called limitations can be, they don't become a limitation, and they're not a limitation anymore if you do the polymerization properly. And the biggest limitation of resin-containing or resin-based calcium-releasing materials is the proper polymerization of the material, which also has an effect on the ability to release calcium, okay? If the resin is too hydrophobic, there won't be any water coming in and there won't be any calcium being released. So you have to really think about that. Is my material too hydrophobic to actually release the amount of calcium that is necessary to cause that therapeutic effect? Calcium releasing materials can provide a good service to a restoration. However, like I said, they're not all the same because different formulas. The fact that it has calcium doesn't mean that it's going to have an effect. But what is very important to know is that maybe you can do a search for clinical data and see how that product has performed in clinical studies, right? Instead of maybe, going out there and trying to experiment and see what happens. There is enough clinical data out there to support the use of different types of materials, and actually that will tell you whether the material was effective or not. So again, do your research, right? Understand the level of integrity of the company that you purchased the product from, right? Attend lectures and see what colleagues and key opinion leaders have to say about a specific material. Ask around. For sure. Read the IFUs. Even if you don't have the material, read them. Just go online and read them. It won't take you long. It's usually a PDF document, and you can see the indications, how to use it, and then you can actually be a little bit more familiar with the material before you even use it, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 tips to close this episode, to finish it up. You need to understand how calcium works. Calcium released from the material reacts with the tooth structure, and it can generate an alkaline pH, which will trigger hydroxyapatite precipitation, dentin bridge, and possible remineralization. That is how calcium works. You need to understand that mechanism, right? If you understand that mechanism, you can definitely understand, second tip now. You can understand how the material that you choose can do this, right? You know what the mechanism is. Now you need to understand how the material can deliver the calcium and if it's going to be enough calcium to create the condition that you want to create. And the last road tip is do your research, all right? Do your research. Find out which material is going to be best for your clinical application. And that way you can, you don't have to second guess when you use it, or you don't have to hope for the best. No, you need to find people that have used it and they have an opinion and they have an experience. And, even though if it is anecdotal, it's totally valid. Talking to a friend, to a key opinion leader, whatever the case may be. Hey, have you used this? Yes. Does it work in your hands? Yes. And then you can give it a shot. So that is, to me, very, very important, because calcium releasing needs to be in my mind, it should be almost like a rule. People in deep preps should use something that releases calcium. And that's why we decided to do this episode, because I have seen a lot of questions about this, and I'm hoping that it's picking up and it's becoming trendy again. All right? Now, let's do the beer review. Come on. Listen, man. Domaine du Page or du Page. I don't know. This is French. What do I think? I think this beer is awesome, dude. I was hesitant. Well, not really hesitant, because Jeremy brought it, and of course I'm going to drink it. It's not a big deal. But I was skeptical of how good it was going to be. I was skeptical of the fact that, am I going to like this? Awesome. Did it match the brewery description? Oh, to the T, my guy. To the T. Deep amber, yes. Toasty and sweet caramel start, yes. Hoppy finish, yes. I wouldn't say hoppy, I would say hoppish. but still very, very, very good. Would I buy this again? 100%. I'm actually going to go and look for it because this is a local one and I'm sure I can get this anywhere. You know, give it a score from 1 to 5. I'm going to give this a 4.2. Now, let me explain a little bit of the scale. If I give it a 5, it will blow your mind. If I give it a 4, it's a must try. If I give it a 3, it's a meh. And if I give it a 2, you should flush it down the toilet. If I give it a 1, don't even bother. Don't even bother, okay? So that's the scale, 4.2. Two brothers, Artisan Brewing, created this Domaine du Page or Domaine du Page. Either way, French-style country ale. Good job, two brothers. Let's freaking go. If you have a question, if you have a topic that you may want us to develop, you can send it to bondingandbeer@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram, Bonding and Beer. Or you can find us on YouTube, Bonding and Beer. In the description of a YouTube video, you will find a link, and that link will take you to our website. Everything is there. Come on, let's go. This is a question from Dr. Ari Salas. What are the benefits of calcium release over time versus quick calcium release after material placement? This is a good question. Nothing is forever. You're not going to have a product that is going to release calcium for 27 years. That's not going to fly. That doesn't happen. But what you want is for the material to release the calcium long enough to create the conditions for second bridge formation, let's say, or to create the conditions for remineralization, let's say, or to create the conditions for hydroxyapatite precipitation, let's say, right? And that happens, within a few weeks. It doesn't happen overnight, so you need some sort of steady release for, a certain amount of time. Of course, when you place it, the calcium release starts to happen, but it reaches a plateau. And then sometimes some products are even able to recharge. It goes down and then they recharge and it goes down and recharge. But there is a moment where that definitely stops and you're good to go. And that's where you want a product that can maintain its integrity over time. Okay, it's maybe no longer releasing as much calcium or any calcium after a bunch of time, but the integrity of the material, it stays there, so the material can be part of the restoration, right? But there is a difference. However, what you want is sustained calcium release over time or over the time necessary to create the remineralization, the hydroxyapatite precipitation, the new Denton bridge formation. You want the material to be releasing calcium in order for that to happen. Good question, Dr. Salas. Let's see. We have another question here from Patrice Lucero. What are the drawbacks of using conventional calcium hydroxide liners? Those guys have low compressive strength. Some of them are super soluble. It all depends on which product, right? Even though you will find a good amount of products that are indicated for liners that release calcium, they are not all the same. Usually resin-containing materials are stronger from a physical property point of view, but does it really matter if they have low compressive strength when you're using 1 millimeter? Okay? You're using 1 millimeter, and the main idea is not to provide a foundation for your restoration. It's a dressing that is releasing calcium. So do you really care about the physical properties? I can see that, what we use as a base, the physical properties are of the importance, but as a liner, now solubility, that's a big deal, all right? Resin-containing materials such as Sterical LC, for example, is not soluble over time. Dical is soluble, unfortunately, but it is what it is, right? So that should definitely have an effect on what you decide to buy. Okay? What you decide to buy. Our last question of the day is from Christina Kelly. Is a burger a sandwich? Absolutely not. Because
Sip, sip.
a sandwich should be, look, a burger is an experience. A sandwich is a different experience. Let me put it that way, okay? But a burger, the way the burgers were born and the reason why they exist is different from the reason why sandwiches exist. Sandwiches come from England. You know, there was this dude who was some sort of a guy from some nobility. His name was like, he was the Lord of Witch. And he was gambling and he was being fed some food and he didn't want to eat some meat from the plate because he wanted to keep gambling. So he asked for bread and he put the meat on top of a bread and he had the first open sandwich. And because it was the Lord of Witch and then it became sandwich. I don't even know how the story goes. I'm not making this up. You can YouTube this thing. You can Google it. That's where it comes from. Burgers come from the United States of America. Okay? 4th of July is coming. What are people eating those days? Burgers and hot dogs. We're not eating sandwiches. That's not, no. Oh, it's 4th of July. I'm going to have a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. There is a moment for sandwiches. There's a moment for burgers. They're not the same. Their meaning is different. This is a question. Dr. Kelly, we should have a different discussion offline. Because I could be here for I can do a whole episode on discussing this. But they're not the same. Okay, Dr. Kelly? They're not the same. Burger is not a sandwich. Burger is a symbol of freedom. Okay? 1st of July. Let's go. Thank you so much for listening or watching or both today. My name is Rolando Nunez, and I am here with two brothers having a lot of fun. Let's go, two brothers. You made my afternoon absolutely fantastic. Let's freaking go. I think if you go to a restaurant and they are under a different category, then they're not the same in the menu. Like you can make the point that a pizza is a pie because pies are usually like fruit pies. No, you have meat pies, like shepherd's pie. But do you have shepherd's pie and then do you have margarita next to each other in the menu? No, they're different. Pizzas are a different category. Sandwiches. Oh man, that's a mind. Oh, mother.